Hello, everyone. My name is Joe Sergi, and this is the fourth module of my self-help kit on the happy life. This is the audiovisual component of module 4. For more detail, you could read the script version of this module from Michael's website. The title of this module is Top-Down Spillover. Again, Top-Down Spillover. So what is top-down spillover? Top-down spillover is the influence of feelings from overall life on feelings embedded in the various life domains. That is, feelings flow from a superordinate domain to subordinate domains in the context of a satisfaction hierarchy. Life satisfaction being the most superordinate, followed by domain satisfaction uh, and satisfaction with life events and concerns being the most subordinate. Let's go through the process and use an example to illustrate what top-down spillover is all about. We're going to focus on a person, and we'll call her Juanita. Juanita is satisfied with her family life. The events and concerns within the family domain are positive too. For example, events related to her relationship with her husband have been quite positive. Also, she has two children, ages 7 and 12. Both children are doing great in every way. They are doing well in school, are healthy and well behaved, and most importantly, Juanita feels close to her kids. Regarding her work life, Juanita experiences moderate level of dissatisfaction. Note that there are two sets of work events subsumed under the work domain. One negative and the other one is positive. Perhaps Juanita is happy with people at work. She has a good relationship with her boss and all her other colleagues. However, she feels dissatisfied with her pay and benefits. Her last raise was several years ago, and it was not much to speak of. The reason given was the firm is in a mature market and is barely breaking even. The business is not making a profit. She realizes that she can significantly increase her income if she quits and joins another company in a growth market. Regarding her leisure life, Juanita considers, this life domain to be the more important than family and work life. Juanita feels quite dissatisfied with her leisure life. Juanita has two passions, aerobic exercise and foreign travel. She injured her knee a year ago, and this injury put her out of commission. She can no longer enjoy her passion for aerobics. Money is tight. Family expenses are high with two growing kids, and she has not received a decent raise for quite some time. Therefore, she no longer indulges herself with her husband in going overseas on their summer vacations. Her husband's income has not increased significantly either. Hence, her two passions in life have been in a state of oblivion. However, she is satisfied with life overall. She is a happy person. She has a positive outlook on life and always sees the good in people and things. Perhaps this happiness was brought about by having had wonderful parents who gave her unconditional love and taught her how to appreciate life to the fullest. So let's talk about top-down spillover. Juanita allows her overall satisfaction with life to spill over, influencing her dissatisfaction in the leisure domain and, to a lesser extent, her work domain. She may do so by being optimistic, for example, by saying, things are likely to turn around at work and eventually I'll get a significant pay increase. In the leisure domain, she may also rationalize by telling herself that the lack of travel is only a temporary setback. That's when things get better at work, and the family will be able to afford to travel to Europe this summer. In the meantime, domestic travel is the way to go, and that's not a bad thing. Regarding aerobics, she may view this as a temporary setback and appreciate the time off to allow her knee to heal. The time off aerobics from aerobics allowed her to spend more time with the kids, bringing them even closer than before. Note that this top-down spillover flows back to influence satisfaction with life. Again, let me repeat that. Note that this top-down spillover flows back to influence satisfaction with life. That is, although the top-down spillover does not address how it affects satisfaction with life, one can readily extrapolate its strategic use to enhance subjective well-being. Specifically, the top-down spillover principle posits that positive feelings are induced in the most superordinate domain, which is life overall, and then influences feelings in the various life domains, which in turn influences satisfaction in the most superordinate domain. People are endowed by their genetic, biological makeup and early childhood socialization with a certain amount of happiness that they carry from one situation to another. This metric for happiness is what we call HAPS. So some people are endowed with, let's say, 20 HAPS, some 35 HAPS, and some perhaps 5 HAPS. Those who are characterized as having more HAPS are called happy people, and those with fewer HAPS are called unhappy. People experience events, and these events generate positive and negative affect. Life events add a few HAPS to a person's repertoire of HAPS, the person's set point of happiness, thereby enhancing subjective well-being in that situation. These additional increases in subjective well-being are not permanent additions to the person's overall happiness repertoire, the person's set point of happiness. These increases in subjective well-being reflect only a temporary boost. In the absence of other positive or negative experiences, the person returns to his set point. These positive events are emotional uplifts. Conversely, there are hassles. These are negative events that temporarily reduce the person's overall repertoire of happiness. The point here is that people have a set point of happiness, an overall bank of positive and negative feelings representing the person's level of subjective well-being. One can add or take away from this bank, but these additions and subtractions are usually temporary and reflect how the person feels overall in a given instance or situation. Suppose a teenager we will call Mark has a happiness endowment of, let's say, positive 20 haps. He goes to school and sees his girlfriend flirting with a guy. He feels bad. These negative feelings amount to, let's say, negative 5 haps. Therefore, at the time he experienced the negative affect, seeing his girlfriend flirting, his subjective well-being amounted to positive 15 haps. That is, positive 20 haps from his endowment and negative 5 haps from the negative affect generated from this situation. After a couple of days, assuming no incidents that made him feel particularly good or bad, he returns to his set point of positive 20 haps. In other words, his subjective well-being was measured at 22 days after the flirting events. This set point of happiness, this natural endowment or repertoire of happiness, is quite similar to the top-down spillover of affect. Much research on subjective well-being suggests that happy people, compared to unhappy people, perceive themselves more positively, and this positive self-regard biases their perception of outcomes in specific events, in specific domains too. This bias may partly explain the experience of satisfaction across various life domains. This influence of overall happiness on affect experience in a specific life domain is what we call top-down spillover. For example, a longitudinal study has shown that the pattern of influence between job and life satisfaction is mutual. That is, job satisfaction influences life satisfaction, essentially a bottom-up spillover, and that life satisfaction reciprocally influences job satisfaction, meaning top-down spillover. So we can capture this example in terms of a principle. And the principle is called top-down spillover. And we can capture it in the context of this statement. Subjective well-being can be increased by allowing positive feelings from overall life to flow into important life domains. This should increase positive feelings or decrease positive feelings in these life domains. Positive feelings are generated directly by the satisfaction of human developmental needs. Remember, we talked about human developmental needs in terms of needs that can be construed in terms of a hierarchy, varying from the very bottom of the hierarchy, need hierarchy, which would be biological needs, safety needs, need for shelter. We're talking about social needs all the way up to, the need for self-esteem, and then moving on up the hierarchy to the need for self-actualization and ultimately the need for knowledge and creativity and aesthetics. That would be the top set of needs in the need hierarchy. The principles of top-down spillover underscores the importance of child rearing and early socialization for subjective well-being. If parents do their best to raise a child who is positive and has a high level of subjective well-being, this child will have an enormous advantage. The high level of subjective well-being should empower the child in every way. High levels of subjective well-being will be used throughout life to further influence, emotions, feelings, affect in various life domains. I like to think of the top-down spillover using the analogy of the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. This is an unfortunate reality for the poor, but it also shows that the rich have a head start on making money. It is easier to make money when you have money than if you are starting out from scratch. The same applies to subjective well being. If you start out with a high level of subjective well being, you are likely to get more of it. If you start out low, then the tide is against you. You have to swim against the tide, and possibly, if you get tired, you drown. That is not to say that those who are dispositionally unhappy cannot do much to improve the quality of their lives. The additional modules on the website that I will also be talking about throughout are replete with advice and personal strategies to enhance subjective well being. The obvious recommendation is to learn to use these strategies, and hopefully you do. Okay, on that note, I'll stop and I will see you in the context of your next module. Bye now.